Welcome to AI Book Highlights. Ever feel like you're just drowning in your to-do list, constantly behind?
Happens to the best of us.
Well, today we're looking at Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog, 21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get more done in less time.
A classic in the productivity space.
Exactly. We're going to pull out five key highlights and three really practical takeaways to help you finally tackle those big, intimidating tasks, your frogs, and seriously boost your productivity.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first highlight, the power of eating your frog. What's the core idea here?
Right. So the central concept is pretty straightforward. You need to identify your most important task for the day.
Your frog.
Your frog, yeah. It's usually the one you're most likely to put off, procrastinate on. But crucially, it's also the task that will have the biggest positive impact once it's done.
Makes sense. So what's the rule?
The rule is simple, but, not always easy. Eat that frog first thing in the morning before anything else distracts you.
Before emails, before coffee even, maybe after coffee.
Well, Tracy doesn't specify that, but definitely before diving into other work. The analogy he uses is if the first thing you do each morning is eat a live frog, you can go through the rest of the day knowing that's probably the worst thing that's going to happen to you.
Okay, that's memorable. So tackling the hardest task first makes everything else seem easier.
Precisely. You start the day with this huge sense of accomplishment. You know the most important, maybe the most difficult thing is already behind you.
And he even says, if you have two frogs, eat the ugliest one first.
Yeah, meaning tackle the bigger, harder, more important task first if you have multiple priorities screaming for attention.
It's really about building a habit, isn't it?
Absolutely. He stresses developing the lifelong habit of tackling your major task first thing. It's about building that action orientation you see in really successful people. They don't just think about it, they do it.
That makes a lot of sense. Get the big win early. Okay, what's highlight number 2?
Highlight 2 is all about planning every day in advance.
Planning. Seems obvious, but maybe not always done well.
Exactly. The idea Tracy puts forward is that planning brings the future into the present so you can actually do something about it now.
Okay.
Think about a really huge, overwhelming task, like how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Right. Planning is how you break down those massive frogs or elephants into manageable steps, into those individual bites.
And there are mental benefits too.
Huge benefits. Tracy says planning unlocks your mental powers, triggers creativity, and even increases your mental and physical energy. It gives you clarity.
And the flip side, what happens if you don't plan?
Well, he quotes Alex McKenzie. Action without planning is the cause of every failure. Strong words, but it highlights the risk of just diving in without direction.
Makes sense. You end up wasting time going in circles, maybe.
Totally. And there's a real time-saving aspect. Tracy argues that every minute spent in planning can save as much as 10 minutes in execution. That's a massive return.
Wow, 10 to 1. That's significant.
It really is. He even has the 6P formula. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance.
Catchy. So practically, what does this look like day to day?
It means making lists. Daily lists, maybe deriving them from weekly or monthly lists, and, importantly, ticking things off as you complete them. That visual progress is really motivating.
I do like ticking things off a list.
It feels good. And then there's the 10-90 rule.
Okay, what's that?
Similar idea to the time-saving point. The first 10% of time you spend planning your task before you begin can save you up to 90% of the time in getting the job done.
Again, a huge leverage point. So planning isn't wasted time, it's an investment.
Exactly. A crucial investment for effective action.
All right, that leads us nicely into highlight number 3. What's next?
Highlight 3 is applying the 80-20 rule. You've probably heard of this one, the Pareto principle.
Yeah, 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort, something like that.
Precisely. So applied to your tasks, it means about 20% of your activities will account for 80% of the value of your results.
So if I have a to-do list with 10 items,
chances are 2 of those items are worth more in terms of impact and results than the other 8 combined, maybe significantly more.
Okay, and how does this connect back to the frog?
Well, often those top 20% tasks, the vital few, are your frogs. They're the most valuable tasks, the ones with the biggest consequences, and guess what?
They're the ones we procrastinate on.
You got it. Instead, people often get bogged down in the other 80%, the trivial many. They stay busy, but they're busy with low-value stuff.
Yeah, that feeling of running hard but not getting anywhere important.
Exactly. But if you can consciously focus on that critical 20%, the payoff is huge. Greater rewards, more satisfaction.
And it's interesting, sometimes completing a really important task doesn't actually take much more time than an unimportant one.
That's a great point. The time investment can be similar, but the feeling of accomplishment and the actual results are worlds apart.
So the challenge for us, for the listener, is to really identify what are my top 10, 20% tasks, the ones that give me 80, 90% of my results.
That's the key question. You need to resist the pull of the easy, low-value tasks and deliberately focus on the high-impact ones.
Makes sense. Focus your fire. Okay, highlight number 4.
Number 4 is a very practical technique, the ABCDE method for prioritization.
ABCDE.
Hmm.
Okay, sounds systematic.
It is. It's a simple but really effective way to prioritize your daily list. You make your list for the day.
Which we decided to do in highlight 2.
Right. Building on that. So you have your list, and before you start doing anything, you assign a letter to each item, A, B, C, D, or E.
Okay, what do they stand for?
A items are the really important things. Must do. Serious consequences if you don't do them. These are your frogs.
Got it. The critical few.
Exactly. And if you have more than one A task, you prioritize them further. A1, A2, A3, and so on. Your A1 is your absolute top priority, your biggest, ugliest frog for the day.
Okay, what about B?
B items are things you should do. They have some value, but the consequences for not doing them are mild. Tracy calls them tadpoles.
Tadpoles, cute, but not frogs.
Right. And here's a key rule. Never do a B task when an A task is still undone. Resist the temptation to do the easier should-do before the must-do.
That's a crucial discipline. Avoid the tadpoles until the frogs are eaten.
You got it. Then C tasks are nice to do. Things like calling a friend, maybe some reading. No real consequences if they don't get done today.
Okay, D.
D is for delegate. Anything you can pass on to someone else to free up your time for your A tasks.
Smart. And E.
E is for eliminate. Tasks you can just stop doing altogether because they don't really make a difference. Things you do out of habit, maybe.
Wow. So you go through your list, A, B, C, D, E, prioritize the A's.
And then the most important step, you discipline yourself to start immediately on your A1 task and stick with it until it's complete.
That sounds like the core of the whole system, really, that discipline.
It is. It's about forcing yourself initially to develop the habit of always working on your highest priority tasks.
Yeah.
This method just gives you a clear framework to do that consistently.
Excellent. Very practical. Okay, what's our final highlight?
Highlight number 5 is about developing a sense of urgency.
A sense of urgency.
Wow.
Okay, what does that mean in this context?
Tracy points out that high performers share a key trait, action orientation. They get things done quickly, they move fast,
As opposed to
the average person who might spend more time socializing, doing low-value tasks, or just generally procrastinating before getting started on important stuff. Productive people tend to jump right in.
okay, get straight to it.
Right. And this connects to something really interesting. He talks about the flow state.
Yeah, Mahali's 6-cent Mahali's concept. Being fully immersed.
Exactly. That state of peak performance where you feel completely absorbed, time flies, you feel clear, focused, maybe even elated. Tracy suggests that developing a sense of urgency, that inner drive to get the job done quickly and well, can actually help trigger this flow state.
So pushing yourself to move quickly can actually get you into that optimal zone.
That's the idea. It's like you're racing against yourself, pushing for efficiency. And this urgency leads to what he calls a bias for action. You're focused on taking the immediate next step to get results, rather than getting stuck in overthinking or planning forever.
Right, action over deliberation once the planning is done.
Yes. And there's the momentum principle at play, too. Once you get started, it's easier to keep going. And the faster you move, often the more energy you generate, the more you learn.
Like pushing a heavy ball, hardest at the start, then it rolls.
Perfect analogy.
Ah.
And sometimes when you feel that momentum flagging, he suggests simple self-motivation tricks. Just repeating to yourself, do it now, or back to work.
Just little mental nudges to get back on track.
Yeah, sometimes the simple things work surprisingly well to break inertia.
Okay, those are 5 really solid highlights. Let's crystallize them into some actionable takeaways for everyone listening.
Absolutely. Takeaway number 1, identify your primary frog. Tonight, or maybe first thing tomorrow before you start your day, figure out the single most important task you need to accomplish, the one that will have the biggest positive impact. Write it down clearly. That's your frog.
Nail down that number 1 priority. Got it. Takeaway 2.
Takeaway 2, plan your day and prioritize with ABCDE.
Right, using the method we just discussed.
Exactly. Before you start working tomorrow, make that list of everything you need to do. Then, systematically go through it and assign A, B, C, D, or E to each item. And be absolutely sure you identify your A1 task that's your main frog for the day.
Okay, plan and prioritize using ABCDE, identifying A1, and the third takeaway.
Takeaway 3, tackle your A1 task first and develop urgency.
This brings it all together.
It does. When you start your workday, your very first action should be to begin working on that A1 task. No checking email, no quick little tasks first. Just dive into the most important thing. And while you're doing it, practice developing that sense of urgency focus intently, work steadily, try to complete it efficiently, stay on it until it's done.
Start with A1, work with urgency, finish it. Simple but powerful.
That's the core message.
Fantastic. So those are just a few highlights and takeaways from Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog. The book itself is full of way more detail and lots of other practical strategies.
Yeah, it's a very actionable book. Lots you can implement straight away.
Definitely. So if these ideas resonated with you and you want to really dig deeper into conquering procrastination and getting more done, we strongly recommend picking up a copy of Eat That Frog.
Agreed. It's a worthwhile read for almost anyone.
We've put a link to purchase the book in the description below. Thank you so much for tuning in to AI Book Highlights.